Tyson, I'm a Mike Tyson fan. I grew up during that time. He was, in my opinion, one of the best boxers of all time, if not the best heavyweight of all time. But over his career, he earned $300 million worth of winnings and declares bankruptcy in 2003.
Yikes.
How does that happen? All right. So today, we're talking about an interesting phenomena, which most people I don't think understand, myself being part of that camp, or, maybe it's not really publicized a whole lot, but famous celebrities who make a ton of money that also have huge financial problems, and how in the world is this even possible?
Yeah, just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean you're good with money.
Right. And, it is kind of like confusing, right? Like, some of these people have net worths of hundreds of millions of dollars, and yet they're going bankrupt. And so, how does this happen? And is there lessons applicable to everybody else? I mean, I think so. And the list is not small. This is not something that, like, hey, one person or five
There's three people that have done this.
Yeah, it's like it's been going on since Elvis, probably before, right? But especially nowadays, where information flows a little more freely, you find out that a lot of these, actors or celebrities or rock stars have huge financial problems, right? Yeah. So here's a couple. I mean, the first one is Kim. Is it Basinger?
Kim Basinger.
I think it's. I've always heard it Kim Basinger. Anyway, she runs into huge financial problems, right? And so you say, okay, well, what went wrong here? Well, one of the things is she gets a little overzealous. She's like, hey, I'm cash flowing, I got a lot of money. I'm just going to buy a whole freaking town, right? Not a big home, not a hotel, not a commercial building, not a complex. I'm going to buy the whole town.
You just call the governor of Georgia and say, hey, I want a town.
Right. And it's, I think she paid, $20 million for the town?
Something like that.
And then the question is, what do you do with the town? I don't know. If you own a town, do the people come with it? Is that like part of the deal, or do they have to like sign on to the deal saying, hey, we're okay with this? Is she entitled to the tax revenue at that point if she taxes the people?
What does ownership of a town mean? Like, what was this a business decision? Was this a power decision?
Yeah.
Was this a real decision?
Can you depreciate a town? It's like, I don't know. And then are you automatically the mayor? Do you still have to have free and fair elections, or can you just say, I
own it? Do you own the land? Do you own the structure?
Are you responsible for like the sewer and the water? Like if the taxes don't cover it, are you personally responsible at that point?
I think all in all, I think it was a poor financial decision.
I think so.
It's what we're coming to.
But it's intriguing me now. Can you bond? Could Kim Basinger, can she issue municipal bonds to cover her town? I mean, if it's a township, you would assume so, depending on the credit rating, right? I think there might be something.
Maybe who's buying Kim's bonds?
Right, Kim Basinger bonds, munis, tax free, right?
KBBs.
I don't know. Like, maybe she made a smart move, but she didn't have good financial help.
I don't know how any of that works.
I don't know
to be candid, I've never owned a town personally. But
anyway, but apparently, if you own a $20 million town in Georgia and you don't manage it correctly, you're going to end up declaring bankruptcy, which she did in 1993. And they're pointing the finger at this small town. So
should have issued more KBBs.
Right. We probably could have, and maybe increased the taxes on the peasants that lived there. I don't know. Or the sales tax. Maybe there wasn't a lot of economic activity going on. She needed to stimulate it. We need more information on this. Kim, if you're listening, we would love to find out more details.
We'll have you on.
We would love to find out what happened. And maybe it's something that's a valid idea. It just needs more thought or professionals involved.
In fact, I think anyone on this list I would love to have on. Just talk to them.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting.
Next one, Nick Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
I think we've all heard about Nick's I hope Nick and I are on good enough terms that we can.
Based on some of the movies you don't want to be on his bad side, because I think
we can talk about him. I can use his first name, call him Nick, but he was making quite a bit of money as a movie star.
Yeah, not just a little bit.
Like, I think he was probably cash flowing 20, 30, 40 million.
A year.
And
he went bankrupt. And so some people are like, how in the world does somebody like Nicolas Cage, right, go bankrupt making like $40 million a year? Well, first of all, here's something that a lot of people are like, $40 million a year. Okay, well, probably, depending on how he's structuring his tax situation, he's probably losing up to half of it in taxes, right? So let's just say 20 million, 15 to 20 million he's paying a year in taxes. So the poor guy really isn't having 40 million. He's probably living off of 20 million.
Man, how does he do it?
I don't know. It's hardship. It really is.
I couldn't do it.
But, according to this, when you're making 20 million and you want to go out and just buy a mansion that you haven't even seen, like that was some of his things. Like he was buying multiple huge mansions in different countries and all over the place. And some of them he'd never even been to, never went to. Right, he just saw I guess he saw the realtor ad, and he was like, I gotta have it, right? Which isn't a whole town, so we'll give Nicolas Cage that. Right?
Yeah, he didn't buy a town, but
he bought a lot of properties like all over the place.
He did buy a $10 million Malibu beach home, a Paradise Island home in the Bahamas for $17.5 million.
Who wouldn't do that?
A Las Vegas mansion, a 2,400 square foot home in Rhode Island.
No.
So he was diversifying.
Right.
Whereas Kim just bought
one in town.
She probably bought other things. We shouldn't.
And let's be honest. I mean, you're buying property in the Bermudas and a beach home. Where was that? In California?
Bahamas and Malibu.
Malibu, right? Malibu. Those are properties that are probably going to hold their value. So maybe Nick wasn't like completely in left field on this thing. Yeah. And he was diversified geographically, so if a hurricane comes through, it's not to take out your whole portfolio, whereas Kim's town was all, geographically located in one thing.
But do you think he was doing that research?
No. It could be a couple different things, right? Sometimes what is interesting is these celebrities, too, if they don't have the right professionals working for them, like you could have, realistically, like, let's just say a real estate agent, right, or a real estate brokerage firm, and they're like, dude, Nick will buy anything we put in front of him. And so they're just like slinging properties.
But it wasn't even real estate. He bought a $150,000 octopus.
Which, how many legs does an octopus have? Octo is 8, right?
So let you work that one out.
Yeah, so it's really only like 20 grand a leg. If you think about it that way.
I guess so, yeah. Give or take.
But, it's hard, right? Because if for people who've never had an octopus, maybe they look at it strange. But once you have one as a pet, it's like you can't live without it.
It's crazy. Let's go through a couple others here.
Okay, all right. Mike Tyson. Tyson, I'm a Mike Tyson fan. I grew up during that time. He was, in my opinion, one of the best boxers of all time, if not the best heavyweight of all time. But over his career, he earned $300 million worth of winnings and declares bankruptcy in 2003.
Yikes.
How does that happen?
How does that happen? I think, like the other two we've talked about so far, I think money becomes unreal when you're making millions.
Yeah.
You think you've got it all. You think, no, I can afford that. I can afford anything. So you just spend and spend and spend and spend, and I don't know. At the same time, he did also spend $9 million in legal fees in 2 years. From 1995 to 1997, he spent over $9 million in legal fees.
Well, I think he had some assault charges, and I think there was the ear-biting incident. I don't know if he got sued over that one. So there was some criminal defense stuff that he was working on.
Yeah, another huge bill. He had an $8,100 bill for the maintenance of his tigers.
Vet bills.
I think that's huge.
Tigers they're expensive.
It's a line item on my budget.
Right. You got to plan for that kind of stuff when you're a pet owner, like octopuses. By the way, Mike, if you are listening, we think you're the greatest. We're not dissing or throwing shade. We like you. Don't want to be on your bad side.
Okay, next. MC Hammer.
Yeah, the only thing we're thinking about Mike is, hey, Mike, maybe like he needed some
I like
help.
My ears,
yeah,
man.
We're good. But, well, here's what's interesting, right? So a lot of these celebrities have, some people call it a home office or a family office, and they have these teams, right? And so I was listening to a report about Johnny Depp, and they were talking about how he was having huge issues, right? And what's fascinating is I read about it, and what they do is they're just out living this lavish lifestyle. They're swiping what's the black card that has absolutely no limit?
I think the Amex Black.
Yeah, so they're just swiping this card, right? And then the bills go to an accounting office back wherever, and the accountants just pay it, right? So these people are out there just spending money, and they really don't have a pulse on what's happening because the team is
just taking care of it.
And all of a sudden they get a phone call, and they're like, oh, hey, by the way, you're out. And they're like, what? And then they start, doing other things like taking debt to get more cash flow and those types of things. But I think that's part of the issue is like when you have a team and a family office, if you're not on top of that, or depending on who your team is and they're not helping you, you can get into a situation where you're just not aware of where you're at, and you're on empty before you know it.
I think it's a big thing that these people, they earn this money and it becomes unreal, and they get removed from the reality of money.
Yeah.
Like when you have a, $40xxx million net worth or whatever, or even liquid available, I think your mindset changes and you just are so out of touch. Like $5 is it means nothing to you. It's cents. It's pennies.
Yeah. So another one that's really interesting, I think it's a fascinating case, Britney Spears. Everybody has their opinion of Britney, right? But here's what's fascinating is Britney, as I understand it, when she went to the courts and they put her under a conservatorship, which is basically where they say, hey, this person is not capable of making their own decisions. And so I believe it was her father and this professional team basically made Britney kind of like this income producing machine, and then the money would come in and they would control everything. So Britney really didn't have access to her own funds until she got that released, not too long ago.
Yeah.
But that is a super interesting case because, again, here is a situation where the celebrity themselves realistically, legally, isn't even in control of their own money. Right? And it's a sad story because according to Britney, and I think a lot of the articles that have been written about it, she really was just at that point in time like, an investment, a product that just generates income for everybody else, and they're making all these decisions. And the crazy part that I haven't been able to find, and I don't know if you can find it there, but when she finally got the conservatorship released so she could make her own decisions, did this team, her father and this team, did they actually save and invest and build a net worth, or was it gone? Did they blow it? I think that would be really interesting to look up. But again, that just goes to show that when you turn power over to somebody, whether it be a power of attorney or you have people that are making decisions with your money on your behalf, and you don't keep a pulse on it, it's very easy to get out of control and have other people kind of take care of that. So I think that one's a super interesting case. 50 Cent is another one, and I think this one's interesting because, he filed for bankruptcy in 2015. He had a lot of lawsuits and a lot of mismanagement. But I think the interesting thing is, 50 was the one who said, if they hate, then let them hate and let the money pile up. And apparently
he wasn't.
He was thinking about accumulation, obviously.
Yeah, well, as we all do.
Yeah, he was like, hey, this money's just going to pile up. But apparently 50 didn't realize the size of the pile and how fast that can kind of go down. But again, mismanagement is what's cited in some of the bankruptcy stuff, that they're just out there spending money like crazy. They don't have a pulse on how big the pile of money is. Maybe it stopped piling up as he became less popular as a rapper.
Well, and I think his first studio album was Get Rich or Die Trying.
We might be on the second phase of that. I'm not sure.
I was gonna say he's got a long way to go, but I think a common theme on a lot of these is legal trouble. Legal troubles can be really expensive, especially if you don't understand the liability that you face.
Yeah.
And this isn't just for like ultra rich celebrities, people like that. This is for normal people. Like we all face a ton of liability, and if you're not structured correctly, it could be gone. Everything could be gone with something as easy as a car accident.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also if you're running a lifestyle that's causing a lot of liability, right? Some of these people have gotten in a lot of lawsuits, whether that because of assault charges or sexual assault or those types of things, right? Obviously not a good idea if you're not planning on spending millions to defend yourself. But
maybe not a good idea at all.
Yeah, which is always interesting to me. I mean, this is just a soapbox thing, right? But sometimes you might be anywhere, like at a community event, right? And there's some person there that says, oh yeah, well, I'm going to sue you, or something like that. Maybe you hear this conversation. And every time I hear somebody say that, whether it's, to another person, you overhear it or whatever, I'm like, you know what? Obviously that person right there has never been in a lawsuit. Yeah. Because I can't tell you how many people I've seen that get into a lawsuit and it's $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in attorney's fees for nothing, right? And so lawsuits are not cheap. They're not something that you lob at somebody for fun. and they are extremely expensive. And I think some of these people kind of figure that out the hard way.
Yeah, I think all of us think it's a tool that we can use, at will, and then some people figure it out pretty quick that when you get down to it, well, you've got your legal fees. You could be liable for their legal fees. You could be. It racks up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But
the other thing on the rappers too, which is interesting, I read another article about some of these guys, and again, trying to understand the lifestyle thing, right? And what's amazing is they have their entourage or their posse, right? And a lot of those guys are on payroll.
Yeah. And
so one famous rapper was commenting, and he said something to the effect of, "Hey, just before I get anything," he's like, "I have $50,000 or $60,000 a month just to pay these people, whether it be bodyguards or who else rolls with him, his buddies or whatever." But
right.
he has this, a sizable amount of payroll before he gets a penny. And so it's very expensive, not only to have the posse on payroll, so to speak, but if they're going out and you're paying for everybody every time you go out to eat, every time you fly somewhere, you're paying for the posse, right? So, some of those things are extremely expensive to have.
Living La Vida Loca ain't cheap.
No, and if you got to pay to have friends, better find one good one. That might be.
I was gonna say, I have a friend,
right? And maybe that's a part-time friend. Maybe only like part of the time. But
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Weekends he can have that off, and I'll just go hang out by myself. So I think that's, super interesting. That again, that lifestyle and what I always thought. To be honest with you, I thought when you see people like that, even Ariana Grande has a huge posse, right? And she takes her dogs everywhere with her.
Yeah.
To bankroll that kind of a lifestyle, you're probably flying private.
100%.
When you go to a hotel, you probably have to take out the whole floor for you and your crew.
Yeah.
Like, it's just an incredible expense.
It's interesting. So, Rich, what do you think causes this kind of lifestyle creep?
I think it's easy, right? Like, you see this sometimes in individuals as well. Like, sometimes, like, somebody comes into money, let's say an inheritance, right? And for some people, they might get $50,000. Some people might get $500,000 or a couple million. And what's interesting is there are some people who receive it, and then they say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to set this aside, and I'm not going to do anything with it for like a year because I don't want to make any crazy decisions."
Yeah.
But the reality is that I think, statistically speaking, most inheritances are gone in 18 months. And that, whether that's because maybe some people are like, "Hey, I'm going to be smart with this. I'm going to pay off my house, or I'm going to go invest in, a portfolio or something like that." But a lot of people, I think that they're just like, "Oh my gosh, I've got $100,000," and they count, and
now I can do all the things I've been saying I'm going to do when I have money.
Yeah, and so whether that's all of a sudden you take the whole family on a vacation and that was 20 grand, or whether you're going to buy that truck that you've always wanted, and it's very easy in this day and age to spend $100,000, $200,000, $500,000. You don't think so, but it really is.
Yeah.
With the movie stars, I think it's even harder because it's not like a one-time, all of a sudden you receive an inheritance, one and done. These guys might have a year, 2, 5 years where they're on top of the world and they are making $20 or $40 million a year, right? And so all of a sudden they bring that lifestyle up, they start paying for all these things we're talking about, and then whether it's lawsuits or whether their career has a
dry
downslide,
year or something,
the next album doesn't take off, right? Whatever the case may be, and they've brought their lifestyle up to this level, and now it's really hard to pull it back.
Yeah.
Right? You got to tell your posse we got to go to McDonald's today instead of...
We're getting off the value menu.
Right. And some of those guys don't like that, right? But the reality is it's really hard to pull back, especially if you set yourself in a lifestyle where you have set costs. You've got debt out there, maybe mortgages on really big, you can't pull back once you establish debt. Or lawsuits, right? Hey, I had all this money and then this lawsuit got out of control. I thought I was going to spend $100,000. I'm up to $1 million. And the lawsuits just keep going, right?
And I think it's interesting, both the psychology behind windfall money, which is money, large sum of money you didn't expect, or even just high income, like that lifestyle creep can take over. And if you're not thinking about what if this goes away, what if this isn't, what if tomorrow, for some of these rappers and singers, like Spotify goes down and I don't know. What if Spotify's in a lawsuit? What if, you have to think about it. And
what if I get canceled, right?
Right.
In this cancel culture, hey, I said
Right.
something somebody doesn't like and now I'm canceled and I can't get, The crazy part that I don't understand, and I've never heard of this. Maybe there are some people and we just don't know about it because they don't make headlines like these people do.
Yeah.
But it would almost be like, hey, if you could get some of these people and they knock the first one out of the park, right? You have your first album, it goes platinum, or you get your first movie deal and it just goes crazy and you're getting royalties, whatever. And if you just say, hey, listen to me just for a minute, take your first 10 million and just sock it away. Don't think about it.
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. We're just going to invest this. And then the next year when the next 10 million comes in, now you can elevate your lifestyle and stuff. If they just did that, then when all of a sudden, whether it's, the things that we've talked about, right? All of a sudden life changes. You've got this nest egg, that you've set aside for yourself. But I think it's so rare that happens. Or maybe we just don't hear about it. That people are actually smart enough to say, hey, you know what? When I get my inheritance, I'm going to pretend like I never got it.
Because it's not fun. It's not exciting. It's not sexy to the public eye to build a nest egg.
Yeah.
What's exciting is diamond-plated jet skis. I don't know who's done that, but that's exciting, right?
Yeah.
That would make headlines. But I met with a financial advisor and invested my first album deal. It's really boring.
Right.
But no, I think it's interesting to take this same psychology and the same kind of case study of all these people that make a ton of money to dial it back a little bit to regular people, so to speak, like the average American.
Yeah.
I think that same philosophy applies when you start to make a little bit more money. Think, this may not last forever and I need to put more away now. And then eventually, okay, I've got a comfortable amount. Now I can start to adjust my lifestyle to be more appropriate to what I actually have instead of what I made.
Yeah, and you see different things all the time, right? You see, I've had clients that have very large portfolios, and when you meet with them, they refuse to go on vacation because they think they can't afford it. Right. Even though they have a massive portfolio, or there was one guy I read an article about. He was extremely wealthy and he passed away, and what they found is that he was sitting in his apartment eating like beans out of cans because he was just so paranoid about building that portfolio. Right?
He's a Dave Ramsey-ite.
Yeah, exactly.
Beans
right.
and rice.
But I think that's where good advice and good team comes in, just to say, hey, you know what, like, let's be reasonable here. Here's what you need to have set aside to accomplish what your goals and values are, and then outside of that, go ahead, loosen up, enjoy life instead of just saving yourself to death, and then you can kind of move forward. But I think, to your point, a lot of people don't know what that is because finance isn't really taught in schools. Even at the education classes that they teach in high school, it's a mandatory one here in Utah. And honestly, they're not teaching about investing or any of this, time value of money or compound interest. I should say they did teach that, but they're not teaching these things, right? So if you're all of a sudden you become really successful, and nobody's ever taught you how much do I have to set aside? What is the appropriate amount?
Right.
How do I plan for taxes?
I think that's a common question that we face is, well, how much is enough?
Yeah.
And I think going back to what you said just a second ago is it really depends on the individual's goals and values, because for some people, $500,000 and they live a really conservative lifestyle, X, Y, and Z, like I'm just throwing numbers out there, but
sure,
that could be enough. But for other people, $5 million may not be enough.
Yeah.
It just really depends on what they want, what they want to achieve, what they want their kids to achieve. Like, it's a holistic picture that you need to look at when you're talking about what's my safety piece? What do I need to have before I can start to let my lifestyle? It just depends on what you want, what you're comfortable with.
And the key there, I think, is lifestyle, right? Because there was, memes on Facebook are like gospel truths. I mean, you can always take those to the bank.
Swear on them in court.
But there was one that I thought was actually really interesting. I wish I had it with me. But it basically said, hey, if you want to become wealthy, don't adjust your portfolio, adjust your lifestyle. And, obviously, I mean, we've met a lot of people that are very happy, that don't need to spend, $250,000 a year to have the lifestyle. They live maybe a little bit lower, but they still go fishing, they still enjoy family time, they still do all the things that make them feel like their life is full without spending millions and millions of dollars and getting involved in lawsuits, right? So again, I think that there is no magic answer. What is that number? It depends a lot on what your goals are. If you need to keep up with the Kardashians, okay,
you may need to work a little harder.
Yeah,
right?
you're gonna need a bigger portfolio. But if you're an actual, I would say more down to earth or more normal type of a person, and your goals are to take a trip once or twice a year to enjoy your family and go fishing, okay, that's a ton smaller. And if you're smart, you can get by with really reasonable size portfolio and reasonable amount of income and not a lot of taxation. So it's a two-way street, right? It's not just how big does a portfolio need to be, it's also how does this person, again, mismanagement is what caused this, right? So if you can get control of yourself, you really don't need that much money in order to have a really good lifestyle, just depending on what your goals. And I think it goes to the other one that's really common, right, is winning the lottery.
Yep.
Windfall money. And this is one I've honestly never, it's the same thing, I'm positive it's the same thing. But, because you can usually take those lump sum or you can take it in an annuitized payment stream, which I think few people would do, take the annuitized payment stream. Might be the smartest thing because then at least you have an income for the rest of your life. Depending on your health, I guess, and how long you're going to live. Like if you have cancer and you win the lottery, don't take the income stream. Yeah. You better take that one lump sum. But it's interesting, right? Most people say, no, give me the whole thing now. Why would they do that? They don't want to defer the gratification. So all of a sudden they get this huge windfall. You have tax issues, all this type of planning, and then again, same thing. Oh, well, if I've got, I don't know what these Powerballs are up to, but they're pretty big, right?
Yeah.
And if you take lump sum, it's a substantially reduced amount. So they say, hey, it's a $100 million, jackpot or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're going to take a lot less of it if you take it up front. But still, you go out and you buy a ranch in Montana. You start buying your friends Jaguars and your mom this and that and all that, and before you know it,
yeah. The Powerball today, $39 million as of today.
So it's kind of small, right? Isn't that a small one?
Well, there's some smaller previous results. I don't know how this works. Clearly, I'm not well versed in the Powerball. But the one today, $40 million. Yeah. So that's not a small amount of money. I mean, it's maybe compared to some of the other winnings, but I think the stat is something like 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt. Right.
Which is insane, I think. But maybe that's because we're financial nerds and we just live and breathe this stuff. So, I mean, if I got a $40 million paycheck, or even if I said I'm going to take a lump sum and I'm going to take $25 million or $30 million, whatever the case may be, right? I can tell you right now, my lifestyle would change, but not a lot. You really wouldn't see a whole lot of change, I don't think, from me as far as cars I drive or the way I dress or anything like that. But I think
the difference would be in priority, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with a lot of these people is they sit and they fantasize all day long about, when I make it big, when I have a ton of money, when I win the lottery, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they win the lottery and they do X, Y, and Z instead of, oh shoot, okay, I have a ton of money now and I'm set up and this is generational wealth, right?
Yeah, should be.
This has the potential to impact my whole family line, people around me, be a good thing. But instead, a lot of the times it's, I'm going to buy a boat, I'm going to buy a new truck, I need a new house, my mom needs a house. You
got to have the airplane.
Right.
You got to fly private.
Absolutely.
Once you do that.
When you're buying people houses, you don't fly with other people. No. You're elevated.
Well, you fly with people you want to fly with, right? And when you fly private, I'm here to tell you, you do get the full can of ginger ale and you get extra peanuts.
Is that right? They give you 2 bags of peanuts.
If you ask for it. Yeah, it's crazy. So, is it worth $10,000 to get to New York in jet fuel?
Might be. When I win the lottery, I'm getting my full can of ginger ale.
For sure. You know what? And if I can be in your posse and you pay me to be in your posse, I'll even bring it to you.
We'll see.
Yeah. But no, I think, so it's interesting. These are all things that happen to everybody, right? Whether it's the lottery winners, whether it's the guy that finally gets his job and he's making $100,000 a year. There's guys that do it really smart and do planning and just say, hey, $100,000 is what it used to be, and I'm going to live on a portion of my income, set it away. And, I've met people that, again, came in for financial advice, and they were making deep 6-figure incomes, and they were declaring bankruptcy because they had the boat, they had the house, the trucks,
and you just can't
lifestyle, and you can't keep up, right? So self-discipline is a huge thing, I guess, probably in everything. We didn't even get into drugs. Most of these celebrities also have drug problems. And apparently they're not cheap.
I wouldn't guess so. Again, no first-hand experience there, but I would guess so.
Because I think what they do is actually interesting. I don't know if we're going to keep this on the thing or not, but there was this really interesting documentary that I watched, and it was how cocaine and what the price is, how it makes it from Colombia to the United States, and each phase. So the cocoa leaves, these people harvest it, and they get a couple of pesos for it, and they take it to people who make the paste and all this stuff, and then they sell it to this guy for this much. And so it was this economic thing where it shows how cocaine, the price by the time it gets to the United States and the end user,
exponential.
It's huge difference, right? But what was interesting is that they get to the end of this documentary, and they're talking to these drug dealers who have blurred faces, and they were making a drop at the Grammys. So they had the Hollywood, that was their clients, and this guy called up, and whoever, they wouldn't say who the guy's name was. It's kind of crazy, but he called up and he wanted cocaine for his party, his Grammys party, and all of his buddies. So he didn't order just like a small amount of cocaine. This guy had a gym bag.
Did he also order 1,000 gallons of baby oil?
That I don't know if that one was. I don't know if that's the same dealer. It might have been, because there was a big gym bag. I don't know what all was in there, but it was really interesting just to watch. And this guy, this drug dealer, they had it on film, right? He's not dressed super nice. He's kind of dressed like a thug, but he walks right up to the Grammys, and there's the ticket booth. He walked up, said something to the ticket booth. They let him go back, and he just drops it right off, and they electronically transferred the funds to him. I don't know what platform, but I think just that night, they gave the number in the documentary. It was some huge number that this guy spent, whoever it was, on cocaine, because he's having this party and he wants everybody to have some. So, again,
at least he's generous.
Yeah,
he could have been selfish.
And I think maybe what these guys don't even understand, and I don't know, is there coupons for hookers and blow? Like, what's
a punch card?
A punch card, yeah. You buy so much, and then the 10th one is free.
You put your phone number in when you pay.
Yeah, you got the card.
Get a little text.
I think it's actually the opposite on drug dealers. I think the first one is free, and then they charge on the rest rather than the 10th
And actually, the
one.
price is probably
going up, right? But maybe that's something that somebody should put a website together for these guys and just say, hey, we'll bundle it and we'll save you 20% if you indulge yourself in these crazy expenses.
You could save 15% or more on your drug addiction by switching to.
Yeah, and all the other things that you're spending crazy money on, you might as well buy it through us and we'll get you a discount.
Honestly, yeah, you want a big boat, we'll get you a big boat, and the hole is stuffed with cocaine.
Right. And if you'll drive it from Colombia to the United States, you can actually make money doing it, right? We can kind of move this up. Maybe that's a business idea for somebody out there. You could be the consolidator and get bulk pricing on.
Not only are we financial advisors, we're business consultants.
Yeah, somebody should do this. Check with your local state and municipalities for legal questions. Whatever the disclaimer is for that one.
I was going to say, we don't provide legal advice.
Yeah,
we don't provide tax advice.
No, we're just investment guys. But no, it'd be super interesting. So, yeah, stay disciplined, people.
Don't do cocaine.
Don't do cocaine and hookers. And don't buy properties that you've never seen. Just random thoughts of advice. So, take that one to the bank, Dave Ramsey.